My name is Thomas Bennett, 54, an Englishman from Bath. After my wife, Claire, passed away, my daughter Emily placed a beige fabric-bound notebook in front of me. It was Claire's travel notebook listing the cities she dreamed of visiting with the two of us: Lisbon, Istanbul, Mexico City. On the first page in blue ink, Claire had written, "Don't rush. When you arrive, stand still and let the city breathe." "Dad, let's follow Mum's notes," Emily said. I nodded. For the first time in years, we booked our tickets. Lisbon in the morning smells of butter and sea wind. We ducked into a little pasteleria. Being English, I instinctively asked for coffee to go and looked for a quiet table. The server smiled. Bamdia set down 2 steaming bika at the marble counter and gestured for us to stand like locals. "No takeaway?" Emily asked. "Here people stand together for a few minutes to wake the day," she said, adding 2 warm pastéis de nata. The pastry shattered crisp, the custard was silky, the surface was singed like a sunbeam on glass. I tapped my contactless card, very British of me, but the owner pointed to a small sign, "Multibanco, acima de €5. Under $5 cash only." I laughed, realizing my tap-to-pay habit had just met its match. On Lisbon's page, Claire had written, "Taste it plain before dusting cinnamon." I put the cinnamon back, standing still, no add-ons, no rush. In the afternoon, we boarded Tram 28, the mustard-yellow wooden carriage humming up Alfama's slopes. The bell ding-dinged, stone steps slid by like 8mm film. Like Bath, but rougher and with music, Emily said. I smiled, the notebook on my knee, my arm around her. At Miraduro de Grasa, we hopped off for sunset. A few steps later, I froze. My jacket pocket empty. The wooden seat empty. Claire's notebook was gone. I hurried along the platform, watching the tram recede like a faint chalk line. After months of living small, that notebook had become my way of speaking to Claire, and now I'd dropped it in a strange city. "Dad, breathe," Emily said, hand on my shoulder. "Back to the first stop. Ask the staff. Lisbon is kind." I nodded, throat tight. Westward, the sun touched the Tagus and turned a liquid metal. Inside me, something went cold. If we didn't find it, would I still dare to open the next pages? We switched trams and returned to Martin Moniz. I cobbled Portuguese and English caderno. Lost. "Tram 28. The inspector understood at once, rang the depot, spoke in quick bursts, then "Aguarde por favor." A driver overheard we were English, grinned, showed photos from his trip to the Cotswolds, said lovely cheers, then taught us to pronounce "obrigado, obrigada." For the first time that afternoon, I laughed. The call ended. No notebook yet. The inspector wrote down the address for Perdidos y Echados, lost and found. I held the scrap like the last thread tying me to Claire. "Thank you," I said this time. "Obrigado, almost right, though." My voice shook. The sky turned violet. A young street photographer overheard and asked in English, "Uncle lost a beige notebook." What's inside my wife's name, Claire, in blue ink? The first page says, "Don't rush." He nodded, opened a Lisbon City Photographers group chat, and typed "Found a beige travel notebook on Tram 28. Owner describes blue ink notes," and a quote on page 1. He even sketched the cover from my description. "In Lisbon, strangers help fast," he said. "Many hills, but level hearts." A breeze off the Tagus carried distant guitar. I held Emily's hand, and exactly as Claire advised, stood still. Sometimes standing still is how you let others step toward you. With no news yet, we flew to Istanbul. The city greeted us with say, and the ezan threading the needle spires. At Sultanahmet Cami, a volunteer handed Emily a scarf and pointed to the sign shoes, "Off dress, modestly, keep quiet." I lifted my camera for a wide shot. Emily tugged my sleeve. "Read the rules first, Dad." We padded over the thick carpet and gazed up at the blue vaults. When a tour group looked lost, I stepped aside. The guide bowed his thanks. No one spoke loudly, but respect lay everywhere like soft light. My heartbeat settled. Outside, a rug seller offered say. I braced tea as a sales pitch. He smiled, "Tea, first shop later or don't. We'll still be friends." We learnt how to hold the hot glass and listened to stories of the evil eye and the Silk Road. When we left, he tucked a blue thread into my palm. "To stitch back something that's on its way home." "So you believe lost things return?" I asked. "In Istanbul, every journey knows the road back," he winked. Mexico City pulsed to the turn of trompos for tacos al pastor. European habit had me looking for a table, but here people stood at the counter, ordered dos de pastor con piña, and paid afterward. I asked for a fork. The taquero laughed and pressed a tiny napkin into my hand. Just this. His thin knife flashed. Meat fell in perfect ribbons. Emily dipped into green salsa. I copied and coughed at the heat. He passed me lime and a pinch of salt, showing how to balance sour, salty, sweet, spicy in a single bite. When I reached for my card, he pointed to a wooden box, pay cash round, as you wish. A mariachi band swept past brass, bright as sunlight. Every place has a rhythm, Emily murmured. Stand still and you'll hear it. That night by habit, I reached for Claire's notebook and met the same empty space. This time, I stroked the blue thread from Istanbul and told myself trust one more day. Near midnight, my phone buzzed. A message from a stranger avatar, a yellow rail. Are you Mr. Bennett? We might have your beige notebook. Found on Tram, the 28 under the seat. First line reads, Don't rush. When you arrive, stand still and let the city breathe. Yours, I bolted upright, heart pounding like the day Claire said yes in that Bath church. News, Dad. Emily mumbled, waking. I nodded, speechless. At the end of the text, if you can swing back through Lisbon, we'll keep it safe. If not, we'll find a way. I looked at Emily. Our itinerary was still long cities unopened, but perhaps to go on we needed to return to the place where we stood still, and dropped a piece of our hearts. Emily smiled. We can change the tickets. Maybe the notebook has something to show us. Night air carried the scent of jasmine through Mexico City. I set the blue thread on the table, folding it into a little road linking Lisbon, Istanbul, Mexico City. Somewhere beyond the screen, someone was keeping Claire's pages safe for us. At dawn in Mexico City, Thomas Bennett and his daughter Emily changed their tickets and flew back to Lisbon. On the plane, Emily pressed her cheek to the window. Dad, who do you think kept the notebook? Thomas smiled. Someone who knows how to... Stand still. Stand still. Only those willing to pause would notice a notebook under a seat. The Perdidos y Achados room felt like a cupboard of memories, umbrellas, scarves, train tickets, wooden dolls. A silver-haired woman with her hair in a bun, Dona Inez looked up as they entered. Mr. Bennett Thomas nodded. She opened a drawer and lifted out the beige, fabric-bound notebook, as if it were a small bird. A tram cleaner found it under the last seat. I only read the first line to identify it. Thomas took it heart-thumping. The worn cover, the old paper sent Claire in blue ink, it was all there like a breath. Thank you, Thomas said, pronouncing obrigada a little awkwardly. Dona Inés chuckled. For you, it's obrigado. Then slowly, as if to herself, lost things aren't only objects. They're often parts of a story left untold. Emily pulled a box of pastilles de nata from her bag and set it on the counter. For you. She blinked, surprised. Thank you. That will be my afternoon treat. Before they left, she slipped a punched Tram 28 ticket into Thomas's hand. From the day the notebook was found. A small keepsake. They sat at a cafe facing a stone slope. Thomas opened the notebook. Tucked between city lists was a thin envelope taped and marked, If you're reading this without me. Thomas held his breath. Inside were 3 short lines exercises in standing still. Beside a body of water, stand 5 minutes and only listen. Under a dome walk, softly honor the silence. In the middle of a market, learn how locals eat, then smile. Emily glanced at him, baffled, then laughed. Dad, we've done all 3, the Tagus in Lisbon, the Blue Domes in Istanbul, and Tacos al Pastor in Mexico City. Thomas nodded, eyes bright. In the margin, Claire had drawn a blank box. The 4th task, you 2 must write it yourselves. What's the 4th? Emily asked. Thomas looked down Alfama's honey-lit hill. We go back to where we lost it. And stand still. The Tagus wind pushed sea salt air uphill. Thomas and Emily stood exactly where they'd been by the weathered iron railing. They said nothing. 1 minute, 2. Footsteps scraped stone, a church bell far away, children laughing. Then the tram bell ding-dinged like someone tapping a drawer in memory. Claire said, Stand still and let the city breathe. Thomas murmured, Perhaps that's how we hear what was missing. Emily tilted her head. On a balcony, a man watered flowers. The runoff sang down the gutter. Nearby, an old woman fed pigeons. Their wings murmured like soft rain. I hear it, Emily whispered. Lisbon is breathing. Thomas took his pen and wrote in the blank box. Following Dona Inez's hint, they visited the old tram depot. A young man in a high-vis vest, Miguel was wiping down a Tram 28 wooden bench. Mr. Bennett Thomas nodded. "I'm the one who found the notebook." Miguel said, eyes bright. "I only read the first line, then saw the group chat post. The tram was packed that day. An elderly woman needed a seat. I thought, if someone was busy enough to drop a notebook, they were probably busy giving up their seat." Thomas smiled and shook his hand. "Thank you for..." Standing still and looking down at the seat, Miguel winked. "My job is to look down to pick up what people leave behind. Sometimes those things pick me up in return." Emily placed the punch ticket from Dona Inez on the wooden rail. "Keep this as a memento." Miguel nodded. "You two should have one as well." He pointed to a wooden board on the wall where passengers left little thank you notes. "Write something." Thomas wrote, "To everyone who stands still long enough to help a stranger breathe. Thank you." TB Emily added a tiny heart. From Emily. That night, they returned to the stand-up espresso bar at the top of the street. The owner recognized them and filled 2 porcelain cups with hot bica. Cash first. This time, he joked. Thomas grinned. Lesson learned. The owner nodded at the notebook in Thomas's hands. "Is that the one?" "Yes." "Thank you, Lisbon," Emily replied. He slipped inside and brought out a little brown envelope, time-worn, setting it before them. "An English woman left this years ago. She asked me to pass it on if someone ever came in holding a beige fabric notebook. I kept it all this time and never met the person she described." Thomas's hands trembled as he opened it. Inside lay an old Polaroid Claire at this very counter hugging a pastel de nata. Behind her, a younger version of the owner raising a cup in a smile. On the back, Claire had written, "Thomas, if you return to Lisbon someday without me, stand here for 5 minutes, and what I want to give you will arrive on its own." Thomas looked up. The owner had gently pushed toward them 2 small porcelain cups printed with Saudade, worn each nicked at the rim. "She left 2 cups with me," he said softly. "Said they were for continuing the conversation." Thomas held the cups like unspoken words. No parcel could be more precious. Next morning, by the Tagus, the wind wet their lashes with salt. They opened the notebook and drew one more box on the last page. They went back to Lost and Found. Dona Inés was making tea. Thomas set before her a box of pastries and 1 Saudade cup. "We've got more than one conversation to continue," he said. "This cup is for your tea and for more stories about the things you guard." She waved her hands. "I can't possibly accept you kept a piece of our life safe." Emily smiled. "Please take it. So each sip reminds you a British family learned to breathe with Lisbon." Tears glimmered in her eyes. "Then I'll tell this story to the next person who comes looking for something they've lost." They left and returned to the tram depot. Thomas handed the other cup to Miguel. "So you'll remember the time you stood still at exactly the right moment." He blushed. "I'll keep it on my desk, so every future notebook finds its way home." That afternoon they rode the tram. Lisbon flowed past the window like celluloid. Thomas gave his seat to an elderly woman. Emily shifted closer to stand by him. "Dad," she whispered. "Maybe the 4th task was to know this wherever we go, we carry Mum with us." Thomas nodded. He slipped the notebook into his backpack this time, zipping it closed, slowly and surely. The bell ding-dinged. The tram rounded a corner and glided by a balcony draped with purple bougainvillea like a late kiss. We come to see and stay to learn. Some lessons arrive only when we stand still, beside water, under a dome, inside a market, and in the open hand of a stranger. Thank you, Lisbon, for returning not just a notebook, but the means to continue our story.